good. It being 7:05 p.m. on Wednesday, July 12, 2023, we'll begin tonight's Board of Selectmen meeting. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Sure, if you'd just come up to the table and introduce yourself, please. And, yep, you just leave those right where they are.
Okay. Well, I'm Daniel Klitschkowski. My interest in tonight's meeting is the traffic committee report and the request for no parking on Catherine Street. So will I get a chance to address that committee in that report?
You would not, that's not a hearing. The hearing took place at the traffic committee meeting,
Okay.
Or the discussion, I should say, but you're welcome to share public comments on the matter.
Okay. Should I do that now?
Yeah, absolutely. And just so we're on the same page, so this is you present, you're engaging in presenting, but there's not going to be discussion or dialogue necessarily because it is public comment. Just to make you aware. Or you're welcome to present.
Let me ask another question. Is it up for the Board of Selectmen approval, the committee's report, and then specifically the no parking on Catherine Street?
It's an item on the agenda, and we'll review the recommendations of the traffic committee.
Okay. I'll present it.
Sure.
Again, I'm not sure how it was initiated. These copies get expensive, so I'm gonna.
Okay.
That's what we can share.
Share.
Yeah, we absolutely can share. Thank you.
Get your own.
Sure. I'll lose it.
Okay, so what I have here is just from the assessors, maps, GIS maps. I'm showing the boundaries of Catherine Street. So the actual Catherine Street is somewhat narrow, but if you look at I think the normal width is 40 feet, so it extends pretty close to, at least on the south side, as you look at this first page, it extends close to the buildings on that southerly edge. All right. Again, the GIS maps are a little bit offset. It shows the edge of the road running through some of the buildings. It's pretty close. I mean, it's within 2 feet of the buildings, the actual boundary. The next one shows is just the aerial view. And again, just showing what potentially exists on that southern edge of Catherine Street. And I'm going to start with 128 Greeley. The edge of the street runs through their property at 128 Greeley, the first house. It runs real close to the next piece of property, and by the way, my son owns that piece of property, Ben Klitschkowski, so I'm really speaking on his behalf. And it then runs to the end of the dead-end street. And so to Catherine Street, down in the end, most of that front yard has already been developed front yard. It's actually got a homemade curb, and at least 10 feet of lawn is technically on the street. The next picture shows an actual pin location. And the last page attached, and you can use it for reference. I try to locate that pin in every page or drawing or presentation here. That pin is the same pin that you see marked on every, and that's just a reference point. Again, my interest is it's called 128R Greeley. We do have permission from DPW. We made a curb cut. Eventually, we hope to get an address off of Catherine Street. But we do have a valid permit, building permit, demolition permit. We've gone ahead and done that. So again, just as a point of reference, the picture shows 128 Greeley, property owned by Denise Camacho, and then our property of interest, 128R Greeley. We've gotten in, the police called on us for parking on the edge of the street while we're doing construction. In fact, again, the two houses, 128 Greeley, and out the end of the road. Second, to Catherine. Most of their vehicles, parking lots, garage, front lawn are technically on Greeley. So I'm not sure what initiated the request for no parking, but I hope that this board will, as they contemplate no parking, realize that these people, these abutters would have to find somewhere else to park. Because technically they'd get a ticket every day if they continue to park where they're parking. Again, I bring this up only because during the course of buying this property, we got into a family feud, and along with buying the property and the deed passing, we have inherited, nothing to do with the family, but we've inherited the family feud. We've gone through a lot of pain and suffering after buying the property. We're probably into it now for the better part of 7 years, trying to develop, it's commercial, it's zoned commercial in a residential area. We have got ZBA approval to make it residential. We have a valid building permit, demo permit, building permit, and to build a single family home and convert the property to R1, residential R1. So again, I don't know the background of the requests for no parking, but at least the other neighbors on the other side don't know why, don't want it.
Mr. Chair, just to be clear, you're opposed to this?
I'm opposed to it.
Okay. Yeah, that was
I'm
my-
opposed to it right now, that if you can't park on the street, or if visitors can't park on the street, you know, the people that live there, then they have to park out on the street and walk. So I think it, again, I'm here, I think it might be a personal, unfounded request, and just to create ongoing hardship for us.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can we keep a copy? Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Being that you are chairman of the traffic committee, what position did the traffic committee take on the request?
So that item is on the agenda for discussion. So I don't want to discuss it during public comment.
All right.
Now,
But a decision was made? A position was taken?
a position was taken. Oh, well, yeah. Fair enough. Do we, if we want to move it, if we want to move out of order, we can do that right now if we want, what we have.
No, I was just curious because it doesn't really give detail.
Correct.
So it just says that the issue was brought up, but it doesn't say what the decision was made by the traffic committee. So that's why I was asking.
That's right. So if we want to discuss that now, I'm happy to move out of order if we want to go now. Plus, we have two members, additional.
Well,
members.
I'll make a request that we move out of order to take
Second.
up the issue.
Sure. All right, so, and then we can move out of order on the committee report. So, specific to the recommendation for a request for no parking on Catherine Street, the traffic committee voted to leave it under for further review, to look further into it and essentially table it. So there was not a determination made for, to move forward with no parking or.
So no action taken.
No action taken. That's where we're at. So we were gonna look at it, but at that time, the traffic committee didn't feel that it was something we needed to move forward with at this time.
It's a neighbor dispute.
Do you want to just come up to the
Wanna come
table
up?
so that way? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, both of you come on up. You're
Yeah,
welcome to
come
come
on
up too. Just introduce yourself for the,
Yeah, Chris McGowan, DPW Superintendent, also on the Traffic Committee.
Michael Lutz, Fire Chief, also on the Traffic Committee.
Yeah, our thought on this was that first of all, the property is still under construction, so there's construction vehicles in and out of there, so to make a decision during construction really we didn't think was appropriate. And on top of that, I mean, I know some people that live on that street, and most of the houses there maybe have 2 spots to park. So if you do no parking on that street, literally, you can't have a guest. So my opinion, but we didn't want to flat out reject the request because we want to kind of see what happens after this house is built and what it looks like. But our thought was you're really restricting people that, you know, nobody on that street would ever be able to have a guest at their house if we had no parking on that street. So I think our thoughts were to not approve it, but we wanted, in fairness to the people that made the request, wait till the house was built and get some more feedback to see what's happening after the house is built. So that's where we're at on it. We tabled it, and you know, we're going to keep an eye on it after the construction was done, was the idea. But the real thought process was we're not inclined to approve it, even after construction is done, but we wanted to keep an open mind that possibly, you know, you might need to do something in the future. So that's where we're at right now.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Are there other streets where we just flat out ban parking on the streets?
No, only
I mean, I know there's
main
certain
roads.
areas like with the bike lanes and things like that, but no.
No, and we've had a lot of these requests in the past.
Yeah.
We generally, you know, unless there's a real safety issue or an issue that there's a reason to do it, we generally don't approve.
If it gets narrow for us to get in
Yeah.
and out of there, we've done it before on certain,
Right.
one side of the street basically, so we
Yeah.
can get in. We've
Yeah.
gone back, we've taken, you know, we reviewed it, looked at it, seen both sides of the roads jammed up, you could barely get an ambulance or a fire apparatus through. Then we really put talk into it.
Yeah.
But some of them, like you said, those are just some of the small, narrow side streets.
Yeah.
But this situation, like Chris was saying, you know, somebody goes in that street and has a birthday party, they're all gonna get ticketed. So, you know, one guest and it's over, they're in the street.
Yeah. Okay. That's all the questions I have.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Can I just ask the board to maybe share?
So you just have to come up to the table, otherwise no one can hear you at home.
Daniel Klichkowski, could I request the board to give the traffic committee maybe a copy of the reports I left you? I ran out of copies.
Absolutely can.
If you're
Oh,
not
sure.
going to use them, it sounds like they may benefit from. seeing them.
Absolutely will.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So we'll just go through these quickly. So,
May I speak on that also?
sure.
All right. I'm Lori.
Yeah, you have to just, the microphones don't pick up beyond that table, so it goes silent.
I live on Catherine Street, and I was the one who sent in the request for the no parking not because of the construction, only for future, because now that we're gonna have another resident on our street, people park on the side of the road when they have a driveway to use, and they always have to use the road, and it just makes it difficult for the kids playing on their bikes and for me to pull in my driveway. It's very narrow. It was voted in as a street, and when they paved it, they didn't pave it long enough and didn't pave it wide enough, so for me, it's a safety issue.
Well, thank you for that. So just for the makeup of the traffic committee, you have the chief of police, the fire chief, the DPW superintendent. So looking at it from all those angles. So if after the construction is completed, as
I'm
Mr.
okay with
McGowan
tabling it,
mentioned,
yeah,
then, if there's any thought of there being a threat to safety, then that will be discussed at that traffic committee meeting.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good there. All right, so the traffic committee and truck traffic and signage in Duck Harbor area. Mr. Kerrigan had come to the traffic committee to discuss the truck exclusion that had been presented in the past. And in speaking with the town solicitor, the town solicitor made it very clear that the Department of Transportation was very committed to their response that any truck exclusion for that area would not apply to the business located on 179 Woodlawn Street. So at that time, the traffic committee chose not to move forward with any further discussion or action. The traffic speed on Berlin Street at Wilson Street intersection, a resident had submitted concerns about the traffic speed. We have, the town of Clinton is installing new radar signs that will be able to help track data and will allow the Clinton Police Department to be more strategic in when they can be in that area. So at that time, it was just taken under advisement that Clinton Police Department will keep an eye on the matter. Overnight parking on town property at Philbin Park Splash Pad. Drawing a blank on this one. So that there's limited spots. The vehicles are usually out of there by the next morning because they're often, whether they're at work or whatever the case may be. If you want to fill in the gap.
Yeah, just to follow up, I think the committee was looking to hear more from Parks and Rec. This came just from a letter from a neighbor, but we haven't gotten any complaint or request from Parks and Rec. So I think the committee put that again on hold to see if Parks and Rec had a concern as well.
Thank you. And then lastly, the review of parking on west side of Chestnut Street Hill. Chief Levinger,
Time machine.
Chief Coyne had the Clinton Police Department they began with a education initiative for the residents on Chestnut Street in that area, and they began ticketing as well. So some of the ticketing that transpired is what prompted this matter being brought to the traffic committee. So again, the traffic committee was in support of the efforts by the Clinton Police Department at this time and would continue to keep a closer eye on it. So that's where we're at with the traffic committee report. Any questions? And as far as anybody who might be impacted by any of these items that were on the traffic committee agenda, I've fielded a few calls about how do we stay informed and how come I wasn't informed that as an abutter that this was taking place, for example, on Catherine Street. The recommendation that I've made and the board has stated numerous times is if you sign up for the Notify Me application or app for the traffic committee, anytime an agenda is posted, then you're going to get the alert and then you can look to see what's on there. And if a matter that pertains to your interest is on there, then you're welcome to attend. But outside of that, this wouldn't follow the same protocol as like planning or zoning where abutters are going to be notified of discussion or any discussion pertaining to that area taking place.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
I just want to thank the traffic committee and the Clinton Police for working on Chestnut Street. As somebody who uses it for pedestrian purposes, I guess I can understand the argument that it's too dangerous for residents to back out their driveways. But for everyone who's having trouble backing out, I can point to 10 people who have to walk on the road, and that's able-bodied. So I'm not even thinking of people who are ability challenged or have to push a stroller. So I'm looking forward to having the sidewalk back there. If we once we get the rail trail in, that's going to be a major thoroughfare connecting the rail trail to downtown. So I encourage them to get used to this soon.
Any other discussion? There being none. All right, so moving back to the order of the agenda. Review of minutes from May 17th, 2023. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for May 17th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, mobile food vendor location request for 329 High Street in Philbin Park. Timothy Hoagland Jr., doing business as Hangry Hot Dogs and more.
How you doing,
If you
folks?
could just introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, Timothy Hogan, owner and operator of Hangry Hot Dogs and more.
Very good. So before we start, there was a discussion that took place last night and today between the Director of Parks and Recreation and the
Yeah.
Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. So my recommendation at this time is going to be that we table any further permit requests until we can gather the information of what transpired yesterday
Okay.
in order to move forward with this.
So just to make it clear, can I speak?
We're not going to discuss what took place yesterday
Okay.
until we have all the information. When we gather the information, then you'll be invited back
Okay.
for a hearing to review it.
Okay. So is that it?
So and I would just need a
Okay.
motion from the.
Am I allowed to know what was brought to your attention? Because I'm just curious, because I was told to leave, and then I was told to unpack my stuff, restart up because the taco guy was not coming, and that was from Laura herself.
So, your permit is until 7 PM?
8.
Do you want to speak on this?
Yeah, I went back and looked at the meeting, I just want to make sure did we amend that at some point?
Yeah, I don't remember a time. I know your application said till 5.
11 to 8. I planned on being there till 5 unless there was something going on. I have the licensing, not on me, in my binder though.
Do we want to do this here?
No second, no, thank you, not right now, just, all right. So because this is not a hearing.
I just want myself to know, because I witnessed this conversation here.
We're not having this conversation right now, it's not a hearing, but you're welcome to come back.
I say, can I get more witnesses? There was 10 people around that heard everything. Am I allowed to bring more witnesses?
So again, that's why I don't want to have this conversation right now, because I'd like to, in a hearing, we can have both sides present. I did not make any, there's been no determination about,
Yeah.
Or judgment on what did take place.
Yeah.
We're gathering the information, so to be fair to both parties, to have the information gathered, to bring you back in for a hearing on the matter.
Am I at jeopardy of losing the location or something?
That would all be discussed at the hearing on, depending on what's gathered.
Depending on what's gathered from what?
The information that transpired yesterday between the Parks and Rec Director and the Assistant Director.
And when are we gathering it, and how do you gather that?
So they've provided written statements on their side of the story.
So
and then
where's my?
That would be the hearing.
So do you want my written statement, or is it just you're going to hear their part, and then I get to get called, and then we go from there?
And that's when you would give your side of that.
So they get to put theirs first. I don't get to tell you my side or scenario.
So
Right.
they provided their written side to us, okay?
Right.
I'm saying that once we gather that, then we're gonna call you in for a hearing and we'll get your
Can I see
side.
the written side that they provided you?
Not at that time, no,
Can I ask why?
because it's just part of it's an internal document
So-
that we're gonna be discussing and we
Just
can discuss
withholding.
it at a hearing.
They've already given it to you? and you
Yes, they
just
have.
Don't want to show? Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Would there be anything preventing him from providing a written copy of his interpretation? So
No, not
you
at
can-
all.
You can provide a written copy
Yeah,
and send it
sure.
to us ahead of time,
And-
too.
And other people's that have obviously, that were literally around hearing and seeing the whole scenario?
Sure,
Okay.
whatever you wanna bring in.
And
absolutely.
who do I give that to?
You can email that right to the selectboard@clintonma.gov would be one way, or you can provide it to Mr. Ward and he can distribute it accordingly.
Okay, so I'm a little confused. What is happening? I'm not sure. You're saying there's a written document from what? I guess I'm dumb to the scenario. What scenario happened?
So, number one, your permit was valid to 7 PM, correct?
No, 8 o'clock. That's what my licensing says.
So based upon the discussion during our select board
Yeah.
meeting, it was not 8 o'clock, it was 7 PM.
Okay.
So when that was amended
They asked me to
after.
stay, so, but yeah, okay.
Okay, so if you're asking me, then I don't want you to keep interjecting. I'm telling you what from this side, it was 7 PM was what we discussed
You
at
asked me a
the.
question, but yeah, okay.
So
You asked me
we're
a question,
good.
sir. I was answering
We're
your
gonna
question.
wait for the hearing then, okay? We'll contact you and we'll move on, because clearly you're not interested in hearing.
Sir, you asked me a
You asked me a question, and I'm answering it, and then you're continuing to speak over me, so that's good.
I answered your question, that was all.
We'll notify you when we want you to come back in at our next meeting.
Okay, and when do I expect to get a notification?
So the next meeting will be on.
I know it's summer hours now, so,
August.
9th?
August 9th.
okay. So I don't know anything until August 9th. Is that what you're telling me?
We're gonna send you a letter once we have our side formalized, we're gonna send you a letter and then we'll call you back in for a hearing.
Okay. Thanks.
Can I, Mr. Chairman, just, I guess, from my question, how does that affect his doing business now until?
Does not.
Okay, so it doesn't affect what
Does
he's
not
doing?
affect
Okay,
the business, that's his
All right.
It has no impact on the permit that was approved
okay,
for across the street.
Okay.
okay,
But then the recommendation will be to table the
Yeah.
request for the other permits until
Correct.
that matters.
All right.
So, I'm sorry, can I just maybe one thing?
Sure.
You're
Just
saying.
take
yeah,
a seat.
Yeah, you're saying my permit's only till 7. If I have documentation that says 8, what am I going by?
So when was that amended?
I have I'm not exactly 100% sure, but I have a piece of mail that has my licensing, and I'm pretty sure on there it says from 11 to 8 o'clock.
So
Maybe we can
where,
rectify that.
It is in my,
I'd have to review the file and see.
well, you know, I could bring it in, so
Yeah.
there's no review
Can bring it
necessary.
in
I'll
to-
bring it in to you.
That's easy.
That was mailed to me and given to me.
do you have it on your, do you have?
I didn't expect to have to bring that. I figured you guys would have the documentation, obviously, with you, and it wasn't too long ago, it was 2 weeks ago when this was all allowed. So
So-
it
so
should have been
based-
pretty fresh and should be pretty fresh.
well, based upon reviewing the meeting, the select board voted to approve till 7 PM. So it's now trying to figure out where did it become 8 PM?
Okay,
And on your application, you had till 5. So that's what was written on your application. So then the board remembers 7 discussed at the meeting, and now that's 8. So that's why we'd have to
yeah,
review.
so obviously.
We'll review
something-
the
if it's
file.
written down 5, and then we said 7, and then now it's 8. That's obviously some sort of miscommunication somewhere around here.
I'm not privy to the report, but I'm not sure the hours is really the whole issue here, so.
And it wasn't by any means. The issue was that they were having an in-park, party, and the taco truck was supposed to be there. I guess, he drove by, he asked me, sir, are you gonna be here for us tonight? I said, as far as I know, yeah, of course, if I can be. And he said, well, so F you, and you can have it. And what happened was Laura came up and said, hey, we have someone that's supposed to be here. I said, okay. I started packing all my things up. After a brief conversation with her, started packing my things up. I guess she contacted the taco gentleman and came back up to me and said, hey, I knew you had packed everything up, but if you would like, you can unpack and, move on. We can serve. About an hour and a half later, Mackenzie came up and said, you're not supposed to be here. And she came up with Laura. You're not supposed to be here. No one asked me to leave. And I said, okay. So she said, moving forward, we're going to have to figure something out, whether you're here or not, because they had already contracted the taco gentleman, which was completely fine by me. I was more than excited. I had packed up and was happy to leave. Not happy, but I was willing to leave. But, as soon as she said I could, I had quit my job to pursue this, It's obviously not your care, or not care, but I thought I was trying to do all the right things, is all my point. So just, I guess, keep that in mind.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, you need to make a motion to table this?
Sure.
Okay. I'll make a motion to table the request from Timothy Hoagland Jr., doing business as Hangry Hot Dogs and More, to operate a mobile food cart on town property located at Philbin Park Splash Pad at 329 High Street in Clinton.
Second?
Any discussion?
Okay.
Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda, Christopher McGowan, Superintendent of Public Works, 2023-2024 road resurfacing projects. Thank you.
All right. So we're looking to get some paving done this year. So just different types of paving that we do, like pulverizing and resurfacing is kind of one thing, and then we'll do curbing, sidewalks, and repaving as a separate contract. We currently have a contract with PJ Keating for the first portion of this. We wouldn't have to go out to bid. These roads we could get done relatively quickly. my recommendation was to do Willow Road, which is Route 62. I don't know if you've been out there. It's past the courthouse. That road is, it's in disrepair. There's a lot that are. It's not one of the only ones, but that road actually Berlin plows for us and sands it because we do Chase Street and around the corner up around the top of Bolton Road for them, and they do that for us, and it works out good because otherwise we'd be traveling, or they'd be traveling quite a ways to get to these roads. And they're really not thrilled with doing it anymore because the road's in such disrepair. And it is, it's a numbered route, it's owned by the town, it's not owned by the state. So that's one that I really want to get done. The next several streets are John, Thomas, Spring, and Fairview. John Street is, in my view, probably one of the worst streets in town. It's in complete shambles. The other 3 streets are short streets, 500, 300, 400 feet long. They're all in the same neighborhoods. We do like to kind of package little neighborhoods together because it makes the paving process a lot better. But the main focus was John. But Thomas, Spring, and Fairview all need paving, but John is literally in complete disrepair. The next 2 streets, again, they're kind of together as one, is Robert Street, Robert Memorial Drive. Same thing, they're in really bad shape. I mean, other people I'm sure are gonna call, there are other streets in town that all need, and you know, this is about $850,000 worth of paving projects. It'd be paid for, we're gonna pay this out of the infrastructure warrant articles that we have, which there's a little bit more money than this in there, but you know, you don't want to get too bumped up against how much money you have, because sometimes what happens is driveways can, you kind of have to do driveways after you do get the paving, get the road kind of graded, and then you kind of see where it makes sense to go on the driveway. So a lot of estimates are involved with the amount of tonnage for that. So those are the roads I'd like to do under the current contract that we have. Same company that did, they did Cedar Street, they did Lawrence Street, Harris Hill, they did, several streets in town, Winter Street, PJ Keating, they're one of the bigger people here. They've done work, a lot of work in town, and we're very happy with them, and we want to keep that contract. This will be the last year we can continue the contract, so next year we'll have to go out to rebid. The next, what I'd like to do is go out to bid on curbing, sidewalks, and mill and overlay of Chestnut Street from Mechanic Street to Church Street. So that'd be like from the Armory here to the Town Hall, that stretch. I would love to go to the bottom of the hill. I know you guys were just talking about that. The problem with doing that is there's a major project that we have designed to divert some drainage, a lot of drainage away from Nitro, where they had flooded a few years back, away from Nitro and bring it down to the Nashua River. It's a very large project, and we got money to design that project, and we did. We applied for a grant through the hazardous mitigation, I think that was, and we weren't successful on that, but we want to reapply for it. And it's a major project, so anything we would do on that stretch of roadway would be ripped back out again if we end up getting the money to do this project. And I know we can't wait forever to do this because that road needs to be redone, but I think another round is definitely worthwhile. The flooding that happened several years ago down Nitro, we can't have that happen again, and this diverts a significant amount of water around to the Nashua River, keeps it completely away from Nitro and the Counterpane Brook, which has collapsed in the past. So it's a really important project. So I want to be a little patient before we tackle that stretch. So the stretch I want to do, Chestnut from Mechanic to Church, and then from Church Street up the top to Cedar, which would tie into the sidewalks we did on Cedar Street. So kind of where, connectivity is what we're going after. So we would bring all that down, right down to the park and to the downtown area. So that's one project. And then what I think some discussion would need to take place on, do we want to, and I know there was a citizen's petition to do the sidewalks on Greeley Street. which was approved at town meeting, which doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be done, because funding is up to the town, not up to the citizens petition. It didn't have a funding mechanism in it, so we could add those Greeley Street sidewalks in if that's the pleasure of the board, and we put it all out under one bid, if that's what the board wants to do.
Very good. Any questions from the board?
The money for this, by the way, sorry, is, we have a couple of years of Chapter 90 money, so we'd be, using Chapter 90 money to do that work. And,
Mr. Chairman, I would just, on the Greeley Street sidewalks, I mean, even though there wasn't a funding mechanism for it, I believe that those people that were there on good faith believe that those sidewalks are going to be done, so.
Yeah,
I would move that I think basically we have a moral commitment to do those sidewalks.
Yeah, and I'm just. Well,
I mean,
it's the
that's
board's
just my
decision.
opinion on it.
I
I
have no issue with it whatsoever. I'm 100% fine adding it right into this contract. And, the one thing I want to note on that is that the way we did across the street, if you drive up there, you'll see that we did the sidewalk and then we did a concrete apron out to the road. We're not going to be able to do a concrete apron out into the road, because what's going to end up happening is we're going to have a little tiny patch of asphalt, because we have to somehow tie from that apron into the road. You can't pour straight up against it. It doesn't work that way. So what we would probably do is just pour the sidewalk and then repave the apron, so it would be a paved apron on the road. But I just want that kind of on the record, that's what it's not going to look exactly like across the street, but they'd have a concrete sidewalk, grass strip, but it would be a paved apron to the road.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we allow them to do the sidewalks this year up on Greeley Hill that were basically
I mean,
voted on.
it could be just one motion for all
Yeah.
paving, including Greeley.
Oh, all right.
If you want to do that.
Well, I didn't know, because I know you
Yeah, I
said
think
it was
it's
a
awesome.
question mark whether
Yeah.
the board wanted to do it or not, so.
No, but I mean, if you vote for the whole thing, including Greeley Street, I propose Greeley Street as one of the projects included in this, because
Well,
I was assuming that's what you guys wanted to do.
Well, then I'll move that we approve the list that was submitted by the superintendent.
Second.
To Mayor Rose's point, I think the nature of that request was just to have sidewalks, and
Yeah.
there was no specification as to it had to look like the other side or not. So I think,
100%, yeah.
thank you for clarifying that. And any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just have one, so that drainage project you were talking about from NIPRO, so is that contingent upon getting that grant, or at some
Oh,
point, if we
it's-
apply and don't get the grant, say like in 3 years, are we just gonna have to do it ourselves?
Probably, I mean, I think we probably wouldn't do it if we don't get the grant. I think it was somewhere in the range of $15 million project. What it is it goes from Franklin Street. So there's a little drainage ditch on Franklin Street. And it would go from Franklin Street over Franklin to Grove, down Grove, all the way to the intersection at Mechanic, and all the way down Chestnut Street. And it's a 4-foot diameter drainage pipe. It's a big, big project, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Did you say 15 or 50?
15, yeah. Even our portion, if we get the grant, is substantial, because we gotta come up with some money, it's a
Sure.
matching thing we probably have to come up with.
So we'll probably be applying for this every year?
I don't know. Phil is applied for it the last time.
Okay.
And I think they had some comments back, what would make it a better application, which they generally do. They'd kind of tell you, like, if you added this, this, and this, or we don't like this, and then maybe reapply. So, yeah, something. I'm not sure if it's a rolling grant or if it's a yearly grant that you apply for, but these hazard mitigation grants are out there all the time, so.
In cases like this, if there's a risk to the business, have the businesses ever contributed money to public projects like this?
They could, yeah, for sure.
I mean, if
they've
they,
been
they
involved,
might be afraid that they're gonna incur millions of
Yeah.
dollars worth of damage from
Yeah.
a flood, so they
Yeah,
might
for sure.
do a risk assessment, okay?
Yeah, and I think it's something definitely that Mr. Duffy will pursue again. This was the next project after the funding cutoff, so it would have, if there was a little bit more funding, we would have been the next one, so we just barely missed it. So I think if we try again,
I think
hopefully
overall, I
it'll
like
live
the
up.
project. I mean,
Right.
it makes sense, and it's, it's a shocking amount of water that comes off of Franklin Street that goes, and it goes underneath Nipro's building. And it's a lot of water, so it'd be a big improvement to get it down to Nashua River. And it also goes through downtown, where we had the flooding downtown with the counterpane brick collapse. It just takes all that pressure off of that system and brings it down somewhere that can handle it a lot better. So I'm dying to get that street, new sidewalks and curbing, as much as all of you are. It's just that this is really important.
Makes sense.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you.
You want to stick around for the next one? This is the culvert. I don't
Oh,
know.
sure, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the next item on the agenda is going to be the American Rescue Plan Act recommendations. So the first item is going to be the culvert repair at Clinton Elementary School.
All right, so the culvert, I looked more into that. It's a big slab. It's 450 yards of concrete, I figured out. That's how much concrete is in that slab. So to remove that and replace it, I had estimated very rough numbers between about $400,000 and $500,000 to remove it and replace it. I did see why this happened. So if we did remove and replace it, the question would be, well, is this just going to happen again? But the design, I've never seen anything like this in my life, but it's a 1 foot thick concrete slab with 2 layers of reinforcing bars, big reinforcing bars, 3/4 inch. Most of the time you get 1/2 inch, 5/8. 3/4 inch is a number 6 bars, big, and there's 2 mats of it. The top mat, the detail called for 1 inch of concrete over the top of the mat. I've never seen less than 2 inches of concrete, and generally you'd want to have 3 inches of concrete over the top of the mat. So literally you have pieces of rebar going through in both directions, 12 inches on center in both directions, and there's 1 inch of concrete on top of it. That's why all that, it all broke apart. So it was I literally have never seen that in 40 years, a design that showed 1 inch of concrete on top of the mat. So that's why it happened. I'm still questioning why it's necessary at all. I don't, and from my opinion, that culvert was in when the old high school was there, and there was no mat on top of it. There was no concrete mat on top of that, and buses drove down there. We all drove down there when the old high school was there, delivery trucks, everything drove down there. It was never an issue. That bid item on the elementary school bid was actually an alternate item. So it was an add alternate. So generally what you do with add alternates is it's a wish list of things like, okay, if we have enough money, we're gonna do this, 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 and this. Now, if they thought that was necessary, if they thought it was absolutely necessary, the culvert's gonna collapse, it wouldn't have been that alternate. It would have just been, we have to do this. So I don't have any of the drawings of when that culvert was put in, what it was designed as, but in my view, I think it's a completely unnecessary slab. But those are the numbers. To remove it and pave would probably be in the order of $150,000 to remove that slab and then just regrade it and pave it instead of do it. But I just throw out my opinion on it. I don't understand how it lasted for 25 years. They didn't change the grade. I looked at that too, like if they lowered the grade so there wasn't enough soil on top of it, but they didn't. The rims and everything just stayed the same elevation. Nothing changed down there. So I don't know why it's there, and I'm not speaking, I didn't do any structural calculations, but I'm just telling you that's my thought on it, so.
Could we look at maybe that next step of if there are structural calculations that
You
need
need
to be?
drawings from it, and I don't know if anyone has them. Maybe the school has them down there, maybe Brian could look and see if he's got plans on it, he could find something on that. Because it's called H20 loading is what that general design of a culvert is. Like a septic tank or something you put out in the field is just designed to, hold up its own weight and a little bit of soil. H20 is designed to take traffic. So if that was based on H20 loading and the cover on top of it didn't change, then nothing has changed and it's still H20 and there's really no need for it to be protected further than it already is. But again, and then, going forward, if it was decided, hey, we don't have the plans, we don't want to take the chance, you design the slab a little bit differently, and you're not going to have anywhere near as quickly a problem as you had, last time around.
So is there a possibility that what's there could be paved over and just, no, you have to?
Because as soon as you pave over that, it moves,
Gotcha.
differential settlement and stuff, and, concrete moves differently, paving over concrete,
So you'd have to remove
I think you
the
gotta
culvert
remove what's there
and then
pave.
grade it and pave it.
Yeah. Because you can't put pavement right on top of that concrete, because the same thing's gonna happen that's happening to the concrete.
So the next step would be to try to locate the drawings and then,
Yeah, I'll talk to
Yeah.
Brian tomorrow, see if he can kind of dig through what they have down there. Because I think when the old high school, they had all those plans, and they kind of all got, they have them still. So they might have something on when that culvert. Was it put in? I wonder when the high school was put
I was
in?
just gonna say, do you know how old the culvert is?
It's a box culvert, it's a concrete box culvert, so it's not like it's,
It's fairly
80
modern.
years old.
Yeah, it's modern.
It's a modern culvert, yeah. So whether it was put in when the high school was done,
Well, the high school was built in 1960, 61,
yeah.
because we moved in
And that could have
1962.
been then. I'm just wondering, what was there before the high school, do you know, or just the swamp, or? I don't know.
Just, I think, some old buildings and stuff, I don't think there was anything that I ever
Yeah,
remember.
I just don't
you
know, like, when was that culvert
Yeah.
put in? But
But
the
I know-
culvert wasn't like, it's
yeah.
not like, the culvert's not 80, 90 years old. It might be that age. It might have been put in when that high school was built.
Yeah.
So maybe we find the plans to the old high school. It might be on the site plan for that, too.
So Chris, so that culvert runs across underneath Church Street?
That culvert comes across Church Street,
Okay.
kind of through the Nelson Street condos there,
Yep,
a little
yep,
bit
yep.
through there. Underneath that, the Getty Station, like that donut place there, kind of under that, across the street, cross Main.
Yep.
Then it goes underneath the building, Firebreakers building there.
Yep.
And then out to kind of Payne Brook. Then it runs through the Ash Street fields, underneath Water Street, under the railroad tracks and under Water Street, and it dumps out at Prescott Mills. There's a little waterfall at Prescott Mills. That's where that dumps out. So it's underground from behind Worthing Industries is what behind Carbreakers. It goes underground and it kind of goes through and dumps out at Prescott Mills.
And the damage that they're looking to repair, like we're saying, we think that might be just more like almost like cosmetic damage, like we don't think that there's a structural issue, or?
Well, it was put in for structural reasons.
Right.
I just think that it was put in almost as if somebody had an idea that, what if this culvert ever collapses?
Yeah.
We need to put this on top of it. And I don't know if it was based on knowledge that that culvert can't handle the loads, which it had been handling perfectly fine for 30 years, or because they saw plans and said, we better protect this. Again, if that was the case, then why would it be an ultimate bid item? It's just bizarre to me that you would say, hey, if we have enough money, we'll make it so this doesn't collapse.
Right,
It's
yeah.
just-
So what's the next step with that? Are you like not recommending that we use the money, or in your
No,
opinion?
I'm not. I think what we'll do is we'll look for plans to see what we can find. If we can
Okay.
find the original plans from when that culvert was put in,
Yeah,
it might tell us more.
okay,
I know it's heavy. We've been in it, and we've poked a hole through it to tie a drain in, and it's heavily reinforced. It's a very
Okay.
heavily reinforced culvert. It's not like a little septic tank, which is basically concrete and a tiny little bit of mesh or something. This is heavily reinforced, so.
okay.
I would be shocked if it's not H20 loading, but it would be nice to have a piece of paper saying it before we just make a decision to
Yep.
not do it.
Okay.
So I'll have Brian poke through I'll ask him to do that. All right.
very good.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. All right, the next item was the Board of Health vehicle that was requested, and in speaking with Steve Lipka from the Board of Health, as well as Chief Coyne, I had reached out to Chief Coyne to see if there were any police vehicles that they were going to be retiring, and he said they have one that is in the process of being retired, but they just have pickup truck that they purchased is in the shop, so they're using this retired vehicle for the time being. But once that vehicle comes back, then that vehicle could be transferred to another department in town with the select board's approval. And I had spoke with Guarantee Auto, and the estimate was about $3,000 to $5,000 to decommission the police cruiser and make it a civilian vehicle that would be suitable for Board of Health use. It's four-wheel drive, it has a tow package, so one of the things that the Board of Health was requesting was the capability to tow the trailer that they have, which this would be sufficient for. So I'm just asking that we table this until we can get a little more information on timelines for when the police four-wheel drive vehicle, the pickup truck is going to be back in rotation, which would free this up, and then go from there and decide whether the select board wants to repurpose that vehicle to the Board of Health before purchasing a new vehicle for the use itself.
Mr. Chairman, just adding discussion on that is, my understanding was that vehicle has at least 100,000 miles on it. And it just seems to me that, you know, it makes more sense to buy a new vehicle that's going to have a longer life to it than taking on a vehicle that already has 100,000 miles. I mean,
It's not an emergency vehicle for emergency purposes, so, I mean, with the mileage, do you recall how many miles were on the Expedition when you turned that over?
Probably, I'll say,
You know, so for a department that hasn't had a vehicle yet, and we don't know how much use the vehicle is going to really entail, you know, it's for local use, is my opinion. That's,
Mr. Chair, I don't have a problem with the Board of Health having a vehicle, but I'm just curious. I'd like to address if there are needs for different departments that think that they need a town vehicle. I'd rather try to address it like all at once instead of piecemeal with, you know, if Board of Health gets a vehicle and then in the next budget cycle or something, another department says, hey, well, now we think we need a vehicle too. I don't know if I would need to make a motion, but, or maybe just a request, or in case anyone would be opposed to it, we could ask the town administrator just to reach out to the different town departments, just to see if there is a need for a town vehicle, and then just make a decision from there. Does it make sense to have a dedicated Board of Health vehicle, or should we just have a town vehicle that's shared by a couple departments that all need, or think that they would need a town vehicle? I don't know. I think it would be, I'd rather just, if there are any other needs for a vehicle, I'd rather just kind of like get it all settled, like once and for all, versus just, you know, this department getting a vehicle and then somebody else coming back like in another year or so wanting a vehicle. Because, you know, we have the ARPA money now, so might as well utilize it and try to get this, any needs satisfied.
Just, Mr. Chairman, I think we already discussed that issue, that every department that to my knowledge, has a vehicle already. That the only outstanding department that I know of, or that we spoke at that last discussion, was the Board of Health. I mean, it just comes to mind that I can't think of any department that doesn't have one. I don't know, maybe Michael, you can, well, I mean, Council on Aging,
We've
but...
asked for a vehicle for medical rides. Right now we have a grant and we're using Clinton livery, but we've asked to do that. That was back when Russ Carlstad was here, and that vehicle went to facilities.
So
Sorry.
we got one. There might be more.
Sorry.
It's fine.
yeah, so I think, you know, to that point, if we want to ask more departments what they need, I think in looking at departments in general, the Board of Health is one department where their responsibility falls outside of the town hall. It requires traveling. I don't know how many other departments necessarily would. I know that the Council on Aging had just mentioned that they
Yeah.
do, so I think, to gather some of that.
And I'm not, it doesn't have to be one town vehicle that like 3 or 4 departments are fighting over. Maybe maybe the Board of Health does end up getting their own vehicle, but if there are other departments that think that they also would benefit from having a town vehicle, I'd just rather get all the needs addressed now, that's all.
Fair point.
Does the Board of Health know that you are interested in the police, in exploring that?
Yes.
And they're, I guess, waiting to,
Exists.
I guess they could say, yes, we're okay with this plan, or no, we don't want this vehicle, and then kind of come and say, we'd still like a new vehicle. I guess that's,
Right, so the only,
happen.
so in talking with Steve Lipka, Steve
Yeah.
had mentioned that, like the cage, the plastic
Yeah.
seat in the back, the lights, but all of that would be removed.
Moved,
So it
yeah.
would just be a
Car, or whatever it is.
civilian vehicle, correct?
Mr. Chair, is there a timeline for this?
I would say as soon as possible. I would think that this would be something that we should have some direction on, no later than the end of August. I can speak with Chief Coyne about any updates on the pickup truck to see where they are with that. But once that's resolved, then this vehicle becomes available. And then we could get a timeline before any decision's made.
So is there any, if we ask Michael to just send a communication, send an email out to the different departments, just saying, if you think that your department would need a town vehicle, just kind of supply the justification for it and respond back, and just see what we hear and what the justification is?
Sure.
I mean, we can present it as like a needs assessment, so
Yeah.
it doesn't, like,
I mean, maybe,
it
Mary
isn't
Rose
like
might
a,
be right.
hey, do you want to?
Maybe nobody responds,
yeah.
maybe everyone is fine, but like, we'll just see what happens that way,
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Michael, is there a line of demarcation from when we switch to mileage allotment or reimbursement to a vehicle itself? Or, like, is there a usage or mile, like, how do we make the call there? Is there standard practice?
No, I think it's just what everyone does. Most of the departments, if they don't have a vehicle, they'll put in for the mileage for it. But we don't really have
Yep.
like a triple level that we would go to something else. We don't have a policy on that.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Do we want to vote on a table on this, or just leave that, or does it not require a vote?
I think we just don't, if we don't take any action, we don't take any action.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Any further discussion on this? All right. Moving on to facilities and grounds HVAC projects. Mr. Ward, if you just want to provide an update.
Sure, I did speak with the facilities director. He just wanted to convey that he's still working on projects per se. He put kind of a placeholder in for funding, knowing that they're spending a lot of money on HVAC throughout all the buildings, and that he's having the company that they work with kind of do an assessment of all the buildings as to what would be needed in the future, trying to avoid some large repairs, that if there was, say, a $25,000 repair, but he could spend $50,000 to buy new and replace it. So they're still in the midst of that assessment. So he kind of put a number out for replacement, but he really didn't have an itemization on that number, and he's going through that practice right now to come up with a list for the board to look at. So he needed a little bit more time.
Very good. Excellent. Any further discussion on the ARPA? All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda is the annual appointments of boards and commissions. So the letters of interest were, we requested were due by June 30th. And those were included in the updated packet. All right, so just by order. So, Mr. Ward, on the Historical Commission, just on the spreadsheet, under letters of interest, for the incumbent, I didn't see a letter, I don't recall seeing a letter in the packet. So was a letter submitted
For
for the Historical Commission, Robin Davidson?
For the reappointment, I did not get a letter. I didn't have a contact for that gentleman. So he serves also on the Clinton Historical Society Board. So Terry Ngano had indicated to me that he was interested in staying on. He reached out to me when I was off for a personal matter last week, so he had reached out to me at that time, and I have not yet had an opportunity to speak with him. So I know just through Mr. Ngano indicating that he was interested in staying on the Historical Commission, but I haven't had a chance to meet with them to go over, the requirements yet.
Is there a cap on how many members could be on that Historical Commission?
Yeah, I was hoping that there wasn't, but there is, and the statute says no fewer than 3 or no more than 7. So the only other thing is, I know they haven't met for quite a while, so I haven't reached out to the existing members to see if they're still interested, or some of them. It's been a number of years since the committee has met, since before COVID. So, I would like to at least reach out to the existing members. The only one I know for sure that's on there is Dinora Caraballo, who does want to stay on, but the other two, I don't, that their terms aren't up yet. I don't know what their status is. So certainly I can do that as well to see if there may be some more openings. There may be more openings on that committee.
So just as like a little side piece, so the spreadsheet is awesome here. If it had like all the members to be able to see like who's on there when it's up, and then we could, to that point, if you can have up to 7, with those 4 put it over.
Is this
Right.
it?
You did,
Oh, so just, okay,
So
on
it's
the
on
other
two
sheet.
different things,
I
so-
got you.
Yeah,
I
so I
got
think
you.
the first page would just have the current boards, and then the
Oh.
next 2 pages were just the.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
people
Yeah,
that
I
was
got
you
you.
gotta
Yeah.
toggle back and
Thank you, I
forth.
stand corrected.
No,
All right.
no, just-
yeah.
So, gotcha. So there's 3 okay, so
Yeah, so there are
3, and then
yeah,
there's 4 on there.
There are
Gotcha.
3 on there right now, and I think there are 2 others. I know they probably haven't, I don't even know if they've been to a meeting since they've been appointed, because the board hasn't met for so long. So I, could see if they're even still available in town, or even willing to stay on, so.
So we could, tonight, we could potentially reappoint up, or we could appoint up to 3,
Yeah.
and then that 4th, we could have until there's confirmation that either the other members want to stay on. If they want to stay on, then so
Right.
be it. If they don't want to stay on, then that person, we could consider appointing on at that point.
Right, and just fill that in, yep.
And all the, what's the pleasure of the board?
Or so we're going to wait on Davidson until Michael talks to them, or wait on
Yeah,
Mr.
it's up
Davidson?
to- Yeah, however the board wanted to do
Okay.
that, yeah.
I move
so-
that we appoint Gene Inamorati to a term that expires in 2024, and Karen Nugent to a term that expires in 2025.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then, so we're gonna wait for confirmation on Davidson, and then,
And the others.
Mrs. Osborne would also wait. Okay. So as of right now, there still is one vacancy, or there's one seat that needs to be,
Right,
No.
good, thank you.
Is that right?
because with Davidson, so if,
Oh, okay, so.
Which I'm fine with, as
He's
long as they
verbally
want it back.
said, he or she, or
Sorry.
they verbally said they're
Yeah,
interested, but
he
we're
did
just gonna
to,
confirm.
because Mr. Angano works with them on another board, so he passed the message
So it's
through
kind of
him.
like a-
But then when I was out, he tried to reach out to meet with
Okay.
me, and I wasn't able to meet with him because I wasn't
Oh.
here. So I just did want to give him that opportunity to sit down with them, discuss his thoughts,
Okay.
and see, hear myself what his desire is to go
Okay.
forward. So.
TBD.
Very good. The next board was the Board of Registrars. Did Ms. Prophet express interest in returning? Let's see, a letter.
I thought there was.
There's a duplicate of one that keeps on.
Yeah, so the Board of Registrars, those are generally recommendations by parties, so they're usually a party that puts forward the name. There are three members plus the town clerk, so this name had been put forward, I think she's only been on for 3 years, so she would have been recommended by the party that she's affiliated with for that, so.
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint Lisa Prophet to the Board of Registrars.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, Conservation Commission. There were 2 people that had submitted letters of interest. It's a pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chair, I move that we reappoint Donald Brown to the Conservation Commission, and I'd love to take the other position under advisement, or under review.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that will be to reappoint Mr. Brown and take the other vacancy under advisement. All right. Zoning Board of Appeals.
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint Walter Ryan, reappoint Walter Ryan to the Zoning Board of Appeals and appoint Alan Roseberry to a term that expires in 2024.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item, Personnel Board.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we place Brendan Bailey as the employee representative on the Personnel Board.
I'll second.
Second, any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
I was going to move Lisa Prophet.
Okay, so, all right, so want to do that one over. So there are 2 nominations. Those in favor of Lisa Prophet? None? All right, Brendan Bailey?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that 4-0?
I'm not, yeah, 4-0?
Yep.
All right, and then for the other 2 seats,
Mr. Chair.
I'm going to recuse myself from the decision due to a family member being submitted a letter of interest.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we place Joan Moran on the Personnel Board.
And
We're going to do these one at a time?
I can, should I do both? Okay,
let's do this
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we nominate Joan Moran and Ellen O'Toole to the positions on the Personnel Board.
I'll second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Was that 4-0 and abstain?
No, that was unanimous.
Fine.
Okay, well, no, I'm not.
Sorry.
I'm not,
No.
I abstain.
Yeah.
All right. Council on Aging, there is 1 seat. What is the pleasure of the board? Do we want-
I will move to appoint Winifred Hastings to the Council on Aging Board.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Commission on Disability. So there's 3 that are expiring and the interest is not, okay. So there's still vacancies, if anybody is,
That board wouldn't be, I mean, I know they haven't met, but
be-
there's no quorum here.
They don't have enough members to meet, so we're certainly looking for some interest for Commission on Disability. If anyone is willing to serve the town, we don't have enough members to hold a meeting right now currently.
How many do you need? How many do we need to hold a meeting? Looks like there's 3 and then
Seven.
2.
Yeah,
So
so if
four?
it's 7 members, so it would be 4.
Four.
Yeah, 4. And there's two members on there right now, so we need 2 more.
Am I looking at the right thing? Commissions on Disability?
yes.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the spreadsheet, sorry.
I mean, it's a position we certainly need advice on, and as we talked about tonight, with pedestrian access and things like that, it doesn't, and I know they haven't met, but I really think that's one that could make a difference in a lot of people's lives. So, again, I know a lot of people don't want to help out in town, but if that's something that you're interested in, if it affects you or you know anyone who is in your circle, I would strongly encourage you to at least reach out and see what the scope of the commission is and to ask more about it. It's something, frankly, I could use a lot of education on. So, and it's a bigger point of emphasis each and every year. So, yeah, if it falls into your sphere of interest or experience, please reach out.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I think it'd be a good idea. I know the marketing subcommittee hasn't met in a while, but I think that's me and you, Julie, right? I think we're on the marketing subcommittee.
I think so.
It probably wouldn't be a bad, maybe we can
Yeah.
talk about it offline, but there's some events coming up. There's the Old Home Day, there's some public events. I'd like to, maybe when we finish this round of appointments, just get a list of which vacancies are still available and just see, we got social media, we have the website that we can use now, but I think, old-fashioned grassroots wouldn't be a bad idea to set up a table in a booth with, we could even just have a laptop there if people want to, learn what each of the vacancies, what that subcommittee, what that board does. They can read it right there. Have somebody at the booth that's fairly knowledgeable about the different boards that can answer questions and see if we can get some applications that way. So I know there's Old Home Day. I don't know if the Clinton Chamber is doing another sidewalk sale, but just some events over the summer and fall, I think would be a good idea to see if we can get some applications for some of these vacancies.
We have a table at the National Night Out to do that.
Oh, great.
Perfect.
So you're going to volunteer.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. I'll do my homework to get brushed up on all the responsibilities of the boards.
And there is a mission statement on our website with the link to the meeting agendas. I don't know if it's populated, but there's some additional information, so hopefully we can just kind of continue to populate that so that if people are interested, they can get kind of an idea of what that mission is and what it entails.
Excellent. I just want to backtrack for 1 second back to the Council on Aging. So where it says that the Select Board appoints the chair, is that something that we need to do tonight? Yeah, if you just want to come up to the table, please.
So I can explain
Hold
that.
on 1 sec, because no one can hear you.
Yeah,
We're trying to get the,
we had calls.
Mark?
Debbie Goodsell, from Council on Aging Director. I think where that came from, in fact, I know where that came from, when the Council of Aging was first began in 1966, Gerald Caffarelli had it on the warrant at town meeting, that when they first formed the group, the Select Board would name the chair. And then with that, the chair would name so many, and the board would name the others. So that's how it started, but now the board itself nominates and puts them in spot.
perfect. So if that's the case, then I think maybe that's something the bylaw review committee, we can kind of modify that, because the way it reads is confusing, right? To that, the context of the creation of the board makes complete sense, whereas So I'm thinking,
The ongoing.
why are we reappointing
Right,
the
yeah.
chair? So,
Yeah.
perfect.
And that's the way it's run for the last, since 1966, so.
Thank you for,
Yep.
And then, because Mr. Kerrigan can look at me and give me that look,
What?
I'd be willing to step up to the Disability Commission.
Oh,
Guess what?
And I
Great.
think it'd be great to
Yeah,
have
it's
the
a
meetings
perfect
at
fit.
Council on Aging,
Yeah.
because it is
There you go.
handicap accessible.
awesome.
So, all right?
Consider
Thank
yourself
you
for that.
nominated. Well, yeah, make that a formal nomination.
Yes, I'd like to appoint Deb Sargent to the,
Good self.
what? Sorry. Sorry, I had the wrong one. Sorry, I'm looking at something else. Good soul. I apologize to the Disabilities Commission.
Second.
My sincere apologies.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Does that get them a quorum yet?
One more.
Assuming the two who haven't
More.
So
show
close.
up.
Mr. Chair, Mr.
Chief
Chair,
Lutz? Chief Lutz?
would,
Want another one? Want another committee?
would it be, would the Government Affairs Subcommittee be an appropriate subcommittee to review this whole thing we were just talking about with the Council on Aging and the original warrant and work with town council just to try to, I'm getting the impression that there's a little confusion, that it's not worded properly, and just to try to see if we can figure out and get it nailed.
I can email it to you.
Okay.
I would say that would fall under the bylaw review committee.
Okay. all right.
Because it pertains to, that's one of the exercises that, for that committee is to look at any bylaws that need to be reworded. Mr. Gibbons is on that committee as well, so then
Okay.
that way, to your point, we
That
can
works.
keep it simple. All right, so then, moving back down to Cultural Council. There's 2 vacancies, as well as a term expiration, and there were 2 letters of interest. It's a pleasure of the board.
I'll move to nominate Deborah McMahon Cody and Joanna Osborne to the Cultural Council.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And just to know, Mr. Chair, there's still one opening on that board. They would have enough that they could meet, but there's still room for another person if somebody is interested.
Perfect.
And that's one with term limits? Is that one has term limits?
It's
Would you
term
have to
limits by
skip
the
one?
state, not by the town, but the state does have term limits that they can only serve for 6 years, and then they have to get out for a year, and then they can.
For
get
1
back.
year, not a term?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for a year.
Okay, thank you.
The Weeks Fund trustees, Mr. Latini is the only member. I have.
Only member at all?
Only member, and he's up, and he's interested in returning.
Yeah, it's always just a 1-year appointment, so they're up every year. So,
Okay.
So, unless the board has any, is against it, I would be willing to serve on that board just because there's no quorum with just Bob, right? So at least, I don't know what it does. I'm sure Bob can give me the,
I
Yeah.
asked, I know, I've asked before.
There was a bequest from the Weeks Fund that gave money to the town, and only the interest can be used, but the interest can be used for education or, it's usually like library or education type uses, either for speakers or equipment or different things like that. So it's not a huge amount of money, and especially the interest isn't huge, but if it does build up to a point that it can be used for some public purpose, it would be good, to at least take a look at it periodically.
well, I feel like every time we do the appointment for that
Right.
fund, it's just Bob, so maybe the interest is accrued.
So there isn't even a majority vote needed on it. Yeah.
So I would volunteer for a term.
Okay. I'll move to appoint Robert Latini and Matt Kovas to the Weeks Fund Transfer Committee.
I'll second.
Any discussion? I'll abstain. All in favor?
Aye.
The Montechusett Opportunity Council. Vacancy.
Yeah, that's the mock board, and I know that the Senior Council on Aging does a lot with mock, but they have a board, it's a nonprofit board, and the town gets to have a seat on that board. We have had people over the past sporadically, but we haven't had anybody recently to serve on that, so.
So that might be something we could target at the night out. Montechusett Regional Planning Commission.
That's an alternate position. The MRPC voting member is appointed by the planning board, and then the alternate, in the event that person can't attend, the select board gets to appoint the alternate who would go to the meetings in their stead. For a number of years, it's been Phil Duffy, and I'm sure he probably would consider keeping on doing it, but he has served just to have a voice at the table for the MRPC. And the other one was the Montechusett Joint Transportation Committee. In the past, we've had the DPW superintendent that has served on that. Again, just in the event that they need something from the town, we have a designee that's been put forward. So if there's no one else, we can ask those two employees if they're willing to stay involved in that as well, too.
That sounds great.
Sure.
But Montechusett Opportunity, that's a total nonprofit. I mean, they provide, I think they do the Meals on Wheels for the senior center and, or the Council on Aging Center. So there are good programs that they provide in the region, but more like the planning agency, we're directly tied in, where mock, it's where it's just a small piece of what we would do with them. So.
Very good. So that ends the commission and appointments for tonight. So we'll send out either a letter or an email to the people who were appointed, and then can we send something out to the people who had, if anybody submitted a letter of interest that
I don't
wasn't.
think we have too many of those.
That's what I figured. That's-
Okay.
Probably
But
like
no,
the one
But
or
if
two.
they're, just as an
Yeah.
acknowledgement of their interest and
Yeah.
thanking them, and then,
Sure, absolutely. And
And Mr.
definitely
We
we'll
can let
send
them
out
know
the
there's
letter of
other
appointment.
vacancies.
I think the draft that I shared with the board, which will indicate their appointment, and on the bottom, we'll have a space for the town clerk. So when they go to take their oath, the town clerk can sign and stamp that, and then we have all one document that's in place.
excellent.
Mr. Chair, all kidding aside, I think this is one of the better turnouts we've had, so it's something to build on, and I know it involves outreach on our part and, willingness on the public, but I certainly think it's something we can build on, and
Right.
especially for now, we can target some vacancies that, we know there's not getting a lot of tractions, but so I think it's a great step in the right direction. I want to thank everybody for applying, and especially the people who are on board for their willingness to serve.
Yeah. No, absolutely, we're close, so definitely close to filling all of them where it's been a bigger gap in the past. Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Chair, do you, for the people that did, like we were just talking about, some of the people that did supply a letter of interest, if they didn't get appointed, when we do send that letter out, and forgive me if somebody else brought this up, but could we also include in that letter a list of vacancies so that they can, see thank you for your interest, but it didn't work out on this appointment, but here are these other vacancies that are available if you're interested, because they're interested in engaging in one form or another. Maybe if it didn't work out on this board, there might be another board that has a vacancy they might be interested in.
Very good. Excellent. Moving on to the town administrator evaluation and fiscal year 2024 goal setting. So all 5 members have completed the town administrator's evaluation. And I've been speaking with the human resources director. Just about the process that we've put together and shaping it as we go. So the recommendation or the suggestion would be Michael would complete his self-evaluation, which would be shared with the members of the select board. And then between now and our next meeting, the chair would meet with Mr. Ward to review the results of the evaluation, which would provide an opportunity for any dialogue and updates that would also be shared with the select board. And then at our next meeting in August, then move forward with discussing the evaluation during that meeting. We've talked about the timeline, so again, even, the timeline that we mentioned at the last meeting, and then also the timeline that Christine Purple had suggested. So again, we're still tweaking as we go. But thank you very much to Christine for putting the evaluation process together. It was done on a Google form, which seemed to work very well. Thank you to Michael for putting together the spotlights of each goals, which Christine also put together in that one document. And I think the process is heading in the right direction, and thank you for being patient and amendable as we go through this process of finalizing or establishing the evaluation. So thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to the feedback.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I just want to thank Christine Purple for putting that evaluation together. It's definitely, I mean, it was only last year, I think we were just using like Excel. We're doing our best. It was our first year trying to get it done, but with her experience, the way she, I know it's not like cutting edge technology or anything, but it was definitely much more professional, much more easy. The interface was easier. It was easier to fill it out, and it was just a really nice job.
And probably a lot more efficient on the back end.
Oh yes, you can imagine. Yeah,
I concur.
And one other piece of this related to the goal setting. So when talking with Christine, I had asked for some guidance on the goals that that the select board had approved and accepted, and then as that was transformed into Michael's goals and objectives, there were some things that, in looking back on it, were goals that for the select board.
Mm-hmm.
So even though there would be some trickle down that would become goals for Michael, distinguishing between those, so that way some of them seem to blend a little bit, some of them seem to have a pretty wide range within each. So Christine will provide the guidance on narrowing them down, so that way they're still general, but they're kind of in the appropriate bucket. And then any of the feedback that was offered on our evaluations, we can discuss that between August and the September meeting on finalizing that. So, but thank you. Moving on to administrative business. There are no items available for action by the board. And then moving on to the old and new business. Fiscal year 2023 year-end transfers. Mrs. Magliozzi had provided the documentation in our packet. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the list of budget line item transfers to close fiscal year 2023 recommended by the town accountant.
Second.
Any discussion? There be none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item, the annual fireworks event donation request. The Clinton Firefighters Committee is requesting donations to assist with the cost of the annual fireworks display that took place on July 8th, 2023.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, is there a certain amount?
On the letter.
5,000.
5,000? Okay. I'll make a motion to donate $5,000 to assist with the cost for the annual fireworks display that took place on July 8th, 2023, to the Clinton Firefighters Committee.
Second.
Any discussion?
After, do you guys put it on plastic? All right.
Are you still accepting donation? Like, is it kind of just like a rolling donation?
Donations.
Anytime? Oh, sorry. Sorry, chief. I'll-
When
We get yelled at by Mark if we don't.
Like,
No,
if you're
donations,
feeling
I got
generous
the
throughout the
mailbox.
year,
I got the mailbox today. and
Yeah.
it's Still donations. So
Yeah.
they'll continue to come in. A lot of businesses are still trickling in and homeowners, and especially
Yeah.
after the event goes off, a lot of people see how good it was and then they start donating.
well, I was
So-
going to say, if you were there, myself included, we'll be sending in a donation, so if, anyone is feeling generous, that would be great.
And, the show was
It
phenomenal.
was great.
Also, there were people that went out of their way to recognize the police department and their dispersing of the number of people that are there, that how smoothly that goes. It's extremely well attended, and that was phenomenal. And also, thank you to Mr. McNally, Mr. John McNally, the health inspector. He went up to the event to make sure everything was in line. And
SEMA help with lighting.
Nice.
And they did a great job. We had a discussion after that because, there was a few spots that were definitely dark. So we're gonna be looking at, maybe like, not necessarily renting, but getting another lighting tower from a couple of other towns. Because there was a couple spots that we definitely identified that were a little bit dark, so. But they did a great job, the guys.
excellent.
Well, thank you. It's a real
That was a good time.
fantastic
It was a good
community
It's a great
event.
show.
Brings
It's a
brings the
great
community
show.
together and brings people from outside the community.
The fire marshal gave us a visit.
There
Oh,
were some low, it seemed like there was a couple low ones there.
There was a lot of low ones.
Okay.
There was a lot. They had a lot of low ones. But you know what? That's just part of the business. And you know what?
That's why we leave it to the
They're
professionals.
They're well versed in it. And,
Indeed.
you watch it get rained down. The only thing that makes me uncomfortable is, it didn't happen this time, is when the wind's in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is you get fallout. And then the fallout comes into the crowd and people are. So we've had issues with that. We've only had issue one, and it was not on that site. It was when we shot them on the other side of the road. We had we took people in the ambulances. It was bad day. But other than that, fortunately, the way it's prominent wind blows right that way, it's always pretty good. And they put on a good show. They did a real good job,
Excellent. Awesome. The Crystal Club charity donation request. In doing a little bit of looking back, in the past that the select board had donated upwards, up to $500 for the event. They're requesting 100, but I would like to just recommend consideration for,
Yeah, that's a recommendation. What'd you say, 500?
500 was based on what I had saw. in
Yeah,
the
Mr.
past.
Chair, I move that we donate $500 from the Civic Fund to the Crystal Club Charity Golf Tournament.
Second.
Any discussion? And also just take a moment to recognize George O'Malley, who was heavily involved in the Crystal Club charity. Last year he was on the grill, and he'll be missed. And this year's Crystal Club charity open is in the name of George O'Malley. And community announcements. Oh, I'm sorry.
Committee reports?
I'm sorry, so all in favor of the Crystal?
Aye.
Hi. And Mr. Chair,
Sure.
before we move away from old and new business, Can I just ask for update on the consultant search for the ALS, the ALS
Are you
consultant?
going to move the motion? I mean, the motion's on the table for the
So we-
500.
Oh, sorry.
It's already voted.
Yeah, let's just vote that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was.
All,
we already
in-
voted.
so all in favor for the Crystal Club charity?
Aye.
All right, so then, all the new business?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have had one firm reach out. It was advertised in the legal notice and in the goods and services bulletin with the state. We've had one company that has reached out for the RFP. The deadline is next Friday. July 21st is the deadline for submittals. So,
Okay, so we have one, they're interested,
Yeah.
so if that closes out, that's the consultant, right?
right,
Okay.
yeah, once you've advertised, you don't, if you only get one, that's great. If you get more, that's great, but you're not required to solicit anymore if you've advertised. If you
Okay.
didn't advertise, we'd have to at least solicit at least 3. But
All
this
right.
way, we can get whatever comes in. Yep.
Okay, and just the other thing I want to keep on the radar is I don't know if it would, the best way to do it would be for like 2 of us, maybe to go to a finance committee meeting, but if we do think we are going to be moving towards the special town meeting to deal with the ALS, I would just like to have a conversation with the finance committee about the extra fire inspection resources that Chief Lutz has requested, just to get I know that, it's, I don't want to say there was confusion, but it just seems like there's not a lot of clear answers on like what was requested and what was approved or what wasn't approved, and I'd just like to have the conversation with them again, because if we are going to head to a special town meeting to deal with the ALS, I think it'd be a good opportunity to kind of revisit the need for fire inspection resource.
Point made. On that matter, I thank you for forwarding the letter from.
Yeah, that's our medical control director.
Doctor.
I spoke to him about the situation, the ongoing events, and, I want to make sure, I know he's on board, but I said, why don't you put in writing then? So that, now it's in writing. He flat out says, we can do this, there's no question in his mind we can do this. He's on board to assist us, he's already done it in other municipalities. And then just jumping, so some of the things, I just briefly said to Ed in conversation, but one of the things we talked about was, funding some of the fire prevention people through, what you claim in permits. So the permits, the money that you charge for the permits hasn't been updated since 2005. Okay? But there's certain sections of the law that only allow you to go so much. So one of the sections of the law is in the general part of the smoke detectors, the certification of smoke detectors. That's the maximum, so we are at the max there. But a lot of the other ones, they're not, they gotta be up to date. So some of the other things are like, for just one example is dumpsters. We don't have the people to enforce dumpsters. But every single permit, every single dumpster in the town of Clinton, regards the larger ones for commercial use, renovations, they all require permits. We can't enforce that, it's just not possible. We don't have the staff to do that. So for me to sit here and say that we're gonna generate, one person's money, that's not realistic. We're gonna generate more money, because we're gonna be out there with enforcement. So I just want you to just understand that we gotta really sit down and kind of amend all, and this is just a generalized list of all the permits that we have. A lot of them they have no use to us, but they're there. One of the other things was, I reached out to, just other communities to see, and I got a bunch of communities back that have fire prevention. Some of them have 1, some of them have 2. The majority of them are obviously all day people. So I did reach out, and I got a bunch of them, and some of them are actually, bigger communities. I've got Whitman, but nobody subcontracts it, nobody. They'll have people for consultation, like advice, like on, say, sprinklers. But for us, we have consultation right through the Department of Fire Services. We have an engineer on site, and Christine will contact me, I'll phone conference. She'll actually come out and assist me on some of these bigger jobs. When I did my presentation in front of the finance and the board, about my career and everything, I discussed a lot of the places that are ongoing right now, and just to kind of reiterate some of the positions. Jack's Mills is 145, 155 units. Brook Street, when they did the Brook Street marijuana facility, was 67,000 square feet of marijuana grow over there. You know, we went in there, two of us went in there, and we only checked just a handful of devices. Myself, obviously, when we're doing bigger buildings, and if they have gas, I try to do the inspections with the gas inspector, because parts of his stuff, as far as like a hood inspection on a suppression system, David's part is the piping, but his part is also the valves and the carbon dioxide shutoff for those valves. So we just do it together. It's very convenient. David say, well, I'm available this day. Well, I always make myself available to him because he works a full-time job. So we do a lot of that together. But the reason for the spot testing is, and I'm just using this as an example, is we went into that facility, we spot tested the doors to make sure that door 10, when you hit the pull station, rings to door 10. So the firefighters know where they're going. So we had a CO device that was wired into the shutoff for the stoves, because they manufacture food products in there with the THC in it. And we couldn't get it to activate. We tried for a long time. Well, we ended up having the electrician open it. It wasn't wired. It wasn't wired. It was just put on and didn't even wire it. So, and this, like I said, this is just spot testing. So then over to Harborview. Harborview, I believe it's 17 buildings, full fire alarm systems and all that. Next week, I think it's the 19th, I got to do building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. I think I have 5 buildings to do. And I can't do them alone, because you have to stand at the annunciator, and then they'll do a device, and then I'll make sure that device reads it. I'll run the alarm through, and it goes to the fire alarm, because I want to know that where I'm standing is where the call's coming from. The first one I did was inaccurate. I said, well, that's not where we are. So then they corrected all that, got all that straightened out. But like I said, you got to understand, you got 4 devices upstairs, you got some downstairs, you got them in the basement, you got pull stations in those places, and we only do spot tests, and it still takes hours. And if the guys, the firefighters, they help me, because I can't do it alone. If they're on calls, I just have to wait with them. You know, their people will give me a hand if they can, but they don't have our radios and back and forth. So those will take, and this one here on the 19th is probably going to take me 3 hours. 3 hours, and that's just my time, plus the hours of those guys obviously helping. So then you jump over to Presentation Apartments. They got a big project going on up there, which you're kind of part of. They're going to bring the water line up. They're going to sprinkle that property, which is a great thing. Oxford Court Apartments, 5 buildings. It's the fire alarm system is old. It's antiquated. I just had a meeting with them. They're going to completely update that whole. So we're going to have to do inspections on 5 full buildings on High Street. Prescott Mills just put in a brand new system. As I said the last time I spoke, we went in and we spot tested, and just spot testing, I think we found 5 or 6 problems in that system. Just incorrect addresses. You know, you go in and you hit a device, and it's supposed to tell you the unit, but you're in the wrong unit. And we found those, and that was only just spot testing. And then just general renovations across the board. You know, Jim Salmon, I spoke highly of him in the past, because he's out there, and I'm with him and trying to help him get things straightened out and better. I do inspections with them all the time. We're out all the time together. So that's just my take, you know, on the fire prevention. I just think it's needed. You're never going to run out of business if you have inspections as far as like smoke detectors and stuff that say somebody can't do it on a Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. The firefighters, the officers, they'll do it on a Saturday. I've done inspections when I was doing Saturday nights. You have oil burner, oil tank inspections, propane storage. Now, you got to understand propane as far as the storage of the propane, whether it's in the ground or above the ground. That's the fire department. The piping to that appliance is the gas inspector. So if there's another situation, Dave and I kind of work hand in hand, because like he'll call me and say, hey, they dropped the tank, you know, Chief, you might want to check that one. I don't think that's right. You know, so he kind of gives me a heads up. And then I'll ask him, Dave, I saw this, is this right or wrong? So there's another situation, obviously, you know, we work hand in hand. That's what, you know, so originally, so let me think, FY23, I put in for 1 fire prevention guy. And then the questions that were raised was, why did I put in for such high pay? Well, maybe, I think some of it was, I probably worded it incorrectly. I put it down as a deputy. And what I really should have said was a fire prevention officer at deputy's pay. And the reason for that, and I think I explained that reason, is all the firefighters all down there have second jobs. So for me to stimulate somebody to want to take a day job and basically lose their second job, I'm gonna try to pay them. So that's kind of where that came from. Then I get declined for one in FY '23, so I said, then after doing this for a whole nother year and all these projects ongoing, I realized one person can't do this. I'm running myself rampant, going all over the place, you know. And then you got to add, we got a lot of buildings in Clinton that their sprinkler systems are shut off. Weetabix is one. We're supposed to have them in court right now. I can't get them into court. I mean, it takes a lot of work. It's a lot of paperwork. You got to go to Worcester. You got to file charges. They're all in Texas, so I got to work to get a sheriff to serve them in Texas. There's another one on Main Street that I have to do. You know, it's just constant. It's, you know, it's a big job. I'm kind of learning that it's a little bigger than I kind of thought. So then, kind of just jumping ship, just as kind of a hiring update, you know, in reference to the fire department hiring. So I'm not sure exactly, but I hired 4 firefighters, I'll say 2 years ago. I'd say this summer it was 2 years ago. I just recently lost the last one. I lost all 4 of them. I lost them all to pay. They couldn't afford to stay here. So I'm like, okay. So I started the process of hiring 3 firefighters. So before the 4th one just left, I was in the process of hiring 3. I thought I had 3. I truly thought I had 3. I interviewed 9. I thought I had 3. And I did the physicals, and then I gave them the pay schedule and everything. And then I got 2 emails. Hi, Chief. Unfortunately, I cannot accept the job offer to join the Clinton Fire Department as a firefighter/EMT. The reason being the pay. My family and I cannot afford to take that large of a pay cut. Again, I appreciate your time and your understanding. Best, Chris. Good afternoon, Chief. After much thought and discussion with my wife, I've decided to stay at the West Boylston Fire Department for the time being. Unfortunately, this position would be a significant pay cut that I cannot afford at this time. Thank you for so much for the opportunity and your time. Sincerely, John. So again, I thought I had 3. I lost them. I got 1. So then I offered a job to another one. He's going through the physical process. But because I thought I had 3, I go into the website for NeoGov. NeoGov is civil service, just so you understand what that is. And what I did was, you know, some of these people that I interviewed, they're good interviews, but I reject them because I didn't reach them because I thought I had 3. But now, because I rejected them, I can't pull them back. So now I have to send a letter to HR because I haven't amended it to 4 yet. It's still at 3. So I have to send a letter, you know, an email to HR to ask them to release those names of the other that I interviewed to see if I can offer a job to another one of them. So this has been a few months going, and I don't have anybody, you know. I mean, I've got 1. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hoping I have 2. So just to give you an idea, one of the things that, you know, I got to say right out of the gate is when I go into negotiations with Michael and Nick and everybody. One of the things is my pay is based off of the firefighter's contract. It's the law, so I have to disclose that. So every year when we're going to negotiations, I got to write the same letter disclosing that up front. So, you know, that's one of the things. I've been an advocate for pay. It's just a tough situation. Hiring is the, you know, definitely a nightmare in this job. There's no doubt about it. It's difficult, and I'm doing the best. So backing it up, I'm down those 4 positions. I'm down 2 for injured on duty right now. So 1/4 of my department does not exist. So 3/4 of my department is working right now. So obviously, this is the summer months. We right now are absolutely killing our firefighters. We're killing them. There's firefighters in there that come to work and they bring bags with them and they don't go home for 2 days. Just because we have this group that's on vacation, and then when you have this group that's on vacation, now you have less than half of your department to cover that. And there's guys doing, like I said, you go in, you do 48 hours, and then you go home. Just something, you know, like I said, I'm trying my hardest to hire, but it's challenging at the best.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
And is there, I mean, it's all public information, all the firefighters' pay.
Yep.
Is there any way, can we, I mean, we've done salary studies here for other departments. Would it be worth, I wouldn't think a salary study like this, where all the information is public, I don't think it would take a long time to conduct something, to just find out where Clinton lies in the state, and also like, also compare, keep it relative to the median income of the town and all of that. But I think it would be a good idea just to find out, just kind of where we sit. Like, I don't know how, we can have discussions on how we want the output of that study to be, like either like a ranking or a ranking compared with their median income. But just to save you some time, Chief, I mean, can we disclose the salary up front, so you don't waste time interviewing people for like?
So what happened was, we were kind of in the contract negotiations. So I kind of told them this was the range, I told them this was what the range was gonna be, because I didn't know whether we were gonna have an agreement. Then once we got an agreement, I gave them what it was going to be.
Gotcha, okay.
Then I got those letters.
Okay.
So it's like, but I kind of did let them know
You let them know, right.
the range, because it really wasn't etched in stone until we had a memorandum of agreement.
Yep.
So
Understood.
So that's kind of, that was the only time. Other than that, if we weren't in negotiations, they would have had it right up front.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, and we do some comps, when we do go into negotiations.
Yep.
So we have done some on this round as well, so we do have some other numbers when we go in, and that's on the table. Starting pay is on the table with the unions, indicating the chief's desire to raise that starting pay, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, just as far as, as you go into your ARPA discussions and stuff, I just hope that, I understand, the paramedic part of it, the fly car and all that, but I would hope that, at some point we could at least take a hard look at, the reason that I ask is that if we decide, the board decides to buy firefighters a second set of gear, it's probably 8 months away, give or take. It was a lot longer than that, but it's down to 8 months, maybe a little more, and then EMS coats is a little bit less. And then hazardous duty pay. My situation is our firefighters were at the very beginning and through this whole entire event, at the very, very onset, when nobody knew what this virus was, these guys were getting in white Tyvek suits, and they were taking duct tape and duct taping it to their clothes. We were sealing the windows between the driver and the back person with duct tape, because they had no idea. These firefighters all got sick, they all brought it home, they came back to work, and they got sick again. So I hope that, whatever the hazards, whatever the number may be, at least you think about that, and then the rest. And as far as like maybe separated, as far as the, I understand we're still in negotiations with the paramedic stuff, because we still don't have a pay schedule we're still working on. But if not, even that's going to take some time to order that car, and then jump in ship to put my other hat on. Same thing with SEMA. Brian and I, Chief Coyne and I have discussed it back and forth, and there's really one good vehicle down there. Realistically, there's one good vehicle down there. And so if we put a pickup in there, we could have 2 good vehicles down there. And then the other request that I put in for was just trying to get all their equipment serviced and getting ethanol-free gas, so that when they go down there, these things start. And that's going to be a process. It's going to be a process. Now, I'm fortunate that, Ben, son at the town mechanic, is well-versed in the gas aspect, and he can handle all that for me. He can store the gas for us and everything over there. But, I'd like to at least look at the appropriation of that, because every single one of these generators has to go someplace to be serviced and then changed out to ethanol-free gas. So I just would kind of hope that the fire department and SEMA can kind of, at some point, get on the ARPA list and go for discussion.
Can we,
go ahead.
Sorry about that. Can we, could you break out the second set of equipment and the EMS codes?
Absolutely.
And then, if the board
Absolutely.
would entertain discussing that at our next meeting?
Yep, 100%. The equipment's expensive.
Committee reports?
All right, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Community announcements. Committee reports.
Yeah, community reports. Yeah, I'd just like to give an update on the Old Home Day. We did meet today, and we have all good news. Our campaigning for donations has been absolutely outstanding, and because of it this year, we feel that we're going to be able to give free rides to all of the children for the bouncies and the train rides. So there will be no cost for any child. They'll be able to go on any ride that they so desire. Angela's done a fabulous job, and everyone else that's on the committee. But for the weekend of the Old Home Day, we are asking volunteers for that Saturday night and Sunday morning. And if anyone that's interested, they can contact us at oldhomeday@clintonmass.com, so, .government. So we don't have any negatives to say. It's all been good to this point, and everyone is, it's all coming together. We started late, but the people in this town and the businesses and people have been terrific. So we're looking forward to a wonderful weekend for the people in Clinton, so.
Great.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you. Any other committee reports? Very good. Community announcements. Clinton Parks and Recreation Townwide Yard Sale will take place this Saturday, July 15th. There will be sellers in Central Park from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. There are also 35 sellers all over town doing home yard sales. Look for the map at clintonrec.com or pick one up at the Parks and Rec booth in Central Park on Saturday. The rain date is July 22nd. On Wednesday, July 19th, from 5 to 7 p.m., there is an opportunity to learn about electric vehicles at the Bigelow Free Public Library. All are welcome to attend, and no registration is required. Cruisin' Clinton Concert and Car Rally will take place next Thursday, July 20th, from 6 to 9 p.m. on Church Street in front of Town Hall. There will be a DJ, food trucks, a classic car rally, and a special appearance by Tony Funches, formerly of the Platters. Hopefully I didn't
You said it right.
butcher that one. The event is presented by the Clinton Historical Society and funded by the Clinton Cultural Council. The Clinton Police Department will once again, for the second year, host National Night Out. The event will be held from 5 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday evening, August 1st, in the field next to St. John's Gym, just up the street from the police station at 149 Chestnut Street.
Can I add one more?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I was at the library today, and there's been a challenge from the towns of Clinton, New Jersey, Clinton, New York, and Clinton County, Pennsylvania, for who can log the most reading hours. So if you check their social media, and you can they have sheets where you can track your reading hours, or you can email it to them, but it's a little friendly competition for the other Clintons in other states. So the Bigelow Library is happy to help you if you're interested in participating.
Excellent.
Attention, you can backlog too, and audiobooks are included as well. So I think we can win this one, folks. I think we can win it.
Audiobooks are included?
All right, so our next meeting will be Wednesday, August 9th, 7 p.m. So we will not be meeting for the next couple of weeks. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.